the advent of Limbus Company's 6th Fergusonaut, I thought it fitting to make a video that teaches the game and allows me to talk about my latest vice. Through many wasted hours and so much greed, I have enjoyed Limbus, and in 10 minutes, give or take, I hope to share even a small bit of passion for this game with you, the viewer, to the best of my ability. Limbus Company has been my go-to game for my boring school days, and a way for me to enjoy reading. But besides from being a very good game, it's also a slot machine, a visual novel, and a soundboard. Although one downside is that its tutorial is dense. While text definitely tells you how to play a game, a little presentation can make it all the better. This part will be non-spoiler since it's for you, yes you, who have not played this game, or you, the person not farming story content. Here I'll discuss game elements and if time wills, because I want this out by Fergusonaut. Units you should look out for. But disclaimer, if I mention units, be sure they aren't meta-killed by the time you watch this video. There's been a lot of that lately. I'm now going to explain some core game mechanics. Let's start with skills. Every unit, meaning character, has at least 4 skills, 3 offensive and 1 defensive. Skills come in types, like ice cream. There you have the topping of 7 different affinities, like Pokemon types. In the ice cream analogy, you have damage types, which are slash, pierce, blunt damage. And sin affinities are wrath, lust, sloth, gluttony, gloom, pride, and envy. The point is to pick units that can do that type of damage, so fights end faster. One thing to note is that sin affinity weaknesses aren't really important until the bosses come out. Now on to base power, as well as coins, which are way more important than the ×2 damage, because you can't do damage if you can't hit the enemy. Here's a neat chart I found that shows which is which. As you can see, that number is base power. This number is what value a skill's base power is without things like coins. What is a coin, you ask? A coin is a number of times an attack hits an opponent. Heads raise power by said value. In a clash you will flip coins, and while a coin chance is 50, naturally, it is modified by sanity. Sanity, just like I mentioned, raises a 50-50 to higher and lower chances depending on which value this thing is right here. The max sanity you can have is 45, and that earns you a 95% chance to hit heads, for most identities. What I mean is that there are some identities that roll better the worse they feel, and have skills that lower their sanity. These are reserved for a select few identities and enemies, so don't sweat it too much. Limbus Company is a numbers game, and most times you'll lose because you either got completely screwed over by the RNG god, or some obscure passive that took your lunch money. This bit was going to have an example, but I cut it due to time constraints. Next up is egos. Egos are the super moves of Limbus. They either do big damage or help you fulfill conditionals faster, or they do both. Egos can help you steamroll through most of the story content, because most of the time the coin power is ludicrously high. Such power does come at a cost though. Egos require you to pay in both ego resources and sanity. You earn ego resources by using skills corresponding to certain sin affinities. There are also ego corrosions. Except for base ego skills, all ego skills have corrosions, which are more powerful variants of the same skill. Ego skills have higher coin and base power than usual, which is great, but there's certain caveats. When you get a corrosion, which is like most things, it either happens the good way or the bad way. At minus 45 sanity, your sinners will lose their minds and lash out indiscriminately. This can unironically end the game. Sometimes you'll be lucky and it doesn't kill your whole team, but other times, it won't end so well. But sometimes you'll get a corrosion without consequences. This is called overclocking, and it is very cool. But be careful though. The sanity costs are super high when overclocking. So high that you can risk corroding a second time. This could squad wipe your whole team. Speaking of team, let's get to team building. There are 7 main status effects in Limbus Company. But first, a word from my sponsor. Never mind. Bleed is a status effect that does fixed damage on every coin roll. Damage is according to potency and is most tied to the Lust affinity. Some really good bleed identities are the whole Macholand faction and Reap Ryoshu. Burn is like bleed, but instead of proccing every coin, it procs on every turn end. While this sounds bad, most burn units have crazy offensive power and are literally the best in the game. Really good burn identities are Magic Bullet Otis and Dawn Office Fixer Sinclair. Sinking is a status effect that murders both Sanity and Gloom weak enemies through fixed Gloom damage. Opponents with low Sanity gain the highest form of depression, Ligma. Ligma means they can't clash for diddly squat, and at negative 45 Sanity, enemies gain fun effects like Panic. Sinking is tied to the Gloom affinity for if the enemy has no Sanity, or at negative 45 Sanity, they take Gloom damage. Good sinking identities are Wild Hunt Heathcliff and Solemn Lament Ysen. A vast majority of enemies in this game have something called a stagger threshold. Do enough damage to reach it, and your opponent basically falls asleep mid-fight. When they fall asleep, you just wail on them, doing it 3 times the damage. Tremor can induce this weak state in a 2-point plan. First apply Tremor, and then Burst. Sometimes this 2-point plan becomes 2.5, because moves can change Tremor stacks into different subtypes of Tremor. This is called Amplitude Conversion. Side note, there's a lot more to Tremor, but I don't want to explain what I don't understand. Moving on, Tremor is tied to the Sloth affinity. Some really good Tremor IDs are Thumb Carpo Morsalt and Regret Faust. Rupture inflicts fixed damage based on potency, then reduces its count by 1. For explanation, if you do 10 damage, an enemy has 10 Rupture potency, then you do 20 damage. Think of it like an added bonus. Rupture is most tied to Gluttony skills, and really good Rupture units are Malfaust and basically all of Season 6 units. Charge, like Tremor, is a 2-point plan, but instead of being to inflict a status effect on enemies, it's to gain a status effect on yourself. All charge moves require a certain amount of charge for certain moves to be at their most effective. Charge is most tied to envy skills, and really good charge units are Warp Ryoshu and Multicac Faust. Finally, Poise, which is a status effect that modifies your chance to crit. Based on potency, you'll get the chance to do nutty damage. Doing a crit reduces its count by 1. Foist is tied to the Pride affinity. Really good Foist units are the Full Stop units. All that aside, Limbus Company is a super nice game, and there's a lot of aspects of this game that I've ignored for brevity's sake. I wanted to make a video on the shorter side, so I had to cut a lot of bits, like animations I made and stuff I wanted to cover. But I will definitely try to do that in the next video. I am an artist, so I do commissions, so if you're interested, check me out in the description. Signing off.